Well, we have no chairperson. What do we do, Mike?
Well, you look at each other for a minute.
Yeah.
Where's Carl?
Yeah, where's Carl? Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I suppose we'll have to appoint a chairperson.
Would one of you like to be the chairperson?
Somebody could convene the meeting, I suppose. Without people, because we can wait till the next meeting to.
We could.
You could just have a temporary chairperson for today.
How would you
Okay.
like to take that role, so you could?
I was gonna ask you.
Further your opportunity to, take that role on permanently.
I guess I would throw it to you and ask you what your preference would be.
Well,
I think you might have earned your, the ability to state a preference, and I would go with that.
Congratulations, George.
yeah, I think that's what you're saying, right? Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm good with that, so.
Okay, you're gonna suffer for it then. You can't complain later.
Sure.
That was not part of the
Sure,
deal.
sure you can, sure you can, you know, it's prerogative. So there you go.
Okay,
It's all yours.
all right. I'd like to call the meeting to order, as is my responsibility. Now, I would also like to make note of the fact that what a privilege it is to be able to serve the people of Grand Marais in whatever way we can, especially in regards to administering of public utilities. What do I do now? Roll call? I think, Hayden, you've probably taken care of that.
Here.
Okay. George and Tim are here. And the consent agenda.
I would make a motion to approve, and I just have a couple questions on a couple of the bills. The Allied generators, more power plant
Yes.
stuff, I assume. The Bogalis one, that's the sewer line.
Yes.
Okay. Right here, did I have a question on? LHB, what are we paying them for at this point?
Design work.
For,
Highway 61 utilities that the city has to do.
yep. And the northern dewatering, that's your decanting, no? $5,800.
That's a monthly rental for the bypass system.
Ah, okay.
It just came in. These bills are,
Yeah, I know there's some of them are pretty old.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
your last, this is just a report, right?
Yep.
Many of these
Yep.
have been already been paid.
Yep. That's all I have.
Can I second that?
Yeah, I hope so.
do. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda passes, and can we take a break now? Just kidding. So we already did the chairperson. The PUC opening. I understand we have an applicant. And can I say who that applicant is?
Sure.
It's Ann Passos. And will her application be considered by the city council tonight?
Potentially. It's been forwarded to them.
Okay.
It came after their agenda was prepared, but I expect they'll talk about it.
I would recommend that at the city council meeting that the agenda be include that appointment, since we have been we're operating without our full complement of commission members. So, yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, be good to have three again. And I think we already mentioned missing Carl, but having a replacement would be good. Shall we go on to the Gopher Lift Station?
Yep,
Tom,
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, that, you see in my little note, the Gopher Lift Station, which is out east end of town, it serves that whole Gopher, trailer court complex that the building blocks are renovating. And it's put in 1980. We've rehabbed it the best we can a couple times, but it's done, pretty much done. We had a service guy come up, actually the owner of this company came up, and we were trying to get one half of the control panel going. Couldn't make it work. All the controls, the relays and everything are just beyond what we can work with. So They did come up with a new system that we don't have to dig it up, which it sounds pretty neat. The tank itself is pretty solid, so they can put in new guts inside and a new control panel and leave the tank in the ground. Because when we did those last two projects up on the west end, we had to dig the whole tank out of the ground, and there was a lot more work. And so,
Yeah,
So-
so you're feeling pretty comfortable about the fix here?
yeah, oh yeah, it'll be good. It'll work. Plus, they're getting busier and busier now. He's getting more of his units online. If they ever gets developed, the Old Shore Road, there's that big lift station, which is probably 4 times as bigger as the Gopher that will pump into it from the DNR. So it's the next critical one that we need to.
So what could be the life and expectancy of the tank that's not being replaced? Are we gonna have to go back in at some point and replace that tank, or are they doing
It might be
something?
another 20, 30 years. They'll coat it and they'll put in a liner, stainless steel liner.
So they actually are taking the existing cavity and
Yep.
reinforcing it?
Yep. It's like a half moon system. I think we kind of relate it to what I learned as, when people do, let's say, a bathroom replacement, and they bring in their new tub shower surround in 2 units instead of 1 because they can't get it in the door, and it creates that. So it's a good seal. It should last. The steel is pretty thick. It's pretty good. It's just most of the connections that go to heck. So
Yeah.
even when we pulled the ones out of the ground up on the hill, the tank itself is still pretty good shape. Because it's about probably 1/4 inch steel. So it's just all the holes that get drilled into it and stuff like that start to wear out. So
And this is the only company that does this? Or,
they're the ones that put it in. It's the original ones. It's the pumps we got in there. So everything's matches.
Mhm.
So
I'd make a motion to approve the replacement of that lift station.
I would second, and can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Does that come after the second?
Yep.
The discussion?
Sure.
Okay. Oh, I was just wondering when that would happen. Is that still gonna?
it'd probably be this winter. I asked him if we could get in this winter. Because even now it's rusted enough, it leaks, it bypasses inside the tank. We have to go up there with our truck every week or so and pump it out because a lot of the solids don't get pushed down the line, just clear water. So it's been a problem.
And you don't have to dig to get to it.
No,
Just in a.
no digging. There won't have to be an excavator digging to install it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Woohoo, new lift station. Oh, one day on the job and I've already approved a lift station. Thank you, Tom. Should we move on to the climate action plan?
Why not?
Thanks, guys. Yeah, both of you, please.
Oh, he's gonna do it, I'm just here for moral support.
Well, you might as well come present yourself.
Listen to the chair.
Yeah.
Please.
Moral support.
Hi, Shane, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. Hi.
Well, Tim, is this the first you've seen of the climate action plan draft? And have you had a chance to look at it? Maybe you haven't.
No, I have looked at it.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess I got a chance to look at it a couple weeks ago at a meeting we had, climate action plan meeting, and yeah, I think things are coming. I'm just gonna. Do you mind if I just?
Please.
Okay. I think things are coming along well. I especially like the beginning and kind of how it kind of very simply presents what our energy usage is and kind of puts it into 3 or 4 pretty distinct categories. And let's see. Well, and then I just think the rest of it is on track and looking good. I guess I would start off with that.
Now what?
Now what? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if Shane was gonna present anything, or if we're just gonna kind of go through it, or how we're gonna handle this.
Sure, well, let's hear what Shane I know Shane has some questions.
Well, I guess I'm here to see if the PUC supports this plan. And if we can say that the PUC supports the plan. And of course, this is a draft, so it'll change a little bit, but this is the general direction the plan will take.
Yeah, and I think with the understanding that the plan would be then presented to the public, so the public would have an opportunity to engage themselves in that process also.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the PUC's plan, it's the community's plan, so
And we can talk if you want about how we're
recognizing
going to make
how
it
that,
public.
how that goes through the public process of getting approved and accepted, not only by the PUC, but also by city council eventually, if
course.
that's the case. So
Yes.
it's not just a one-step process, but.
Yep, but I think that when you look at the plan right now, you can see the direction that the climate action plan is laid out for the community. That has come from a ton of work that Shane has done with the Nordic Nature Group and with a bunch of other organizations that have been available to create kind of an idea of best practices and then also strategies to obtain that. So an acknowledgement from the PUC would basically begin the iterative process of saying, we have a direction here, we're ready to roll, and now we can bring this to the public and we can engage more city resources in getting that information out to people and getting more community feedback on what that looks like. So this, I feel like, and Shane and I have talked about this, and it's come from other people as well, that having the PUC acknowledge that this work has been done and that this is a direction for the city to work to move in, not only reinforces the resolution that the city passed a couple years ago, but also acknowledges a direction that the city is choosing to move in, and that direction can be modified through the iterative process of community involvement. So.
Yeah, and I think the PUC has been aware of the process and has been supportive and is happy that it's going forward, and with the idea that we would be involved, and let's talk about that in a little bit. If there's certain things you kind of need us to be involved with at this stage, and that ultimately, of course, it's the city council that will receive this and approve this.
Yes.
And so I think one of the things we had talked about was, is there something the PUC needs to kind of be involved with in terms of the plan being created at this point?
Well, you need to tell us whether or not this is something that is that the PUC has the ability to do and the desire to do. Like, really, that's why we're coming to you first. Because if the PUC, you guys are the governing board for the PUC. If the PUC isn't going to have the political will to work on actually making this stuff become part of the PUC's actual operations, the council can do that too, but that's, that it makes the PUC not as useful as, and it's not the structure that we've set up with the city. So.
One of the things that come, reading through this, there's a lot of it that I think is very well done, and it really addresses the issue of carbon emissions, and but I get to the last item of the timeline, the long-term plan to achieve the 100% renewable energy from local sources, and I just kind of, the question mark is, how are we going to make that happen?
Right.
I mean, how is that?
Yeah.
I don't want to put ourselves in a position of advocating for something that is not achievable. And I think that the success of the plan is to be able to accomplish the goals that we put in place. And that, to me, is a big question mark, is can we do that? I mean, is that even, by the stretches of an imagination, even possible?
And that's actually a question I had, because I don't know if we want to try for 100% renewable energy from local sources, even if it was possible. What would it look like? I guess how much local renewable energy should we strive for versus non-local renewable energy? And like a breakdown of the percentage of all of our electricity, how much should be local, how much should be non-local, if we can't do all local.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah, and I agree with that. That wording, I think, especially long term, and we don't know what's going to happen after 2030. to that
Specificity.
That too.
as specific as that is, yeah, in my work with energy issues, I don't know if that made any sense, but in my work with energy issues, it seems like, there's kind of two solutions to decarbonization. And when one is local renewable energy, and the other is decarbonize the utility scale energy that we get, mostly electricity. That leaves out transportation for now, but, and I think nobody really knows which of those is going to work out to be the better deal. And so our approach, or the approach that I kind of have been following, is let's try to do both to the greatest extent we can and kind of see where both of them run. So I would agree with Tim that we probably don't need to say from local sources. Let's just say 100% renewable energy by 20, is it 2040?
2040.
Yeah.
And as you read the rest of the plan, it does talk about non-local or local and non-local sources. And
Sure.
so, yeah, the wording there should
Yeah,
It was maybe a little
I just
bit-
don't want to put stumbling blocks,
Yeah.
in the plan that, can be pointed to by somebody that might not be an advocate for this action.
Yep, that was a good one. And there's more process left to go in creating this plan, so things like that.
Yeah.
There's time to keep going through this and smooth that out. What is the timeline for, getting some kind of a final draft?
So after this meeting, we hope to start to bring the plan out to, I'm calling them focus groups, but we're going to try to meet with groups throughout the city that already get together and talk about the plan and get feedback from those groups. And then also get some feedback throughout the community. And Patrick maybe can talk more about that. But hopefully the month of March, we're getting public feedback and finalizing the draft into a final draft that we can bring before the council in April.
Okay, so that's coming up pretty quick.
Yeah.
The other thing that I noted in here was the funding for the position that, for the sustainability coordinator. And that, when you say that, be the role of the sustainability coordinator to secure funding for the position's salary primarily through grants. I feel a little uncomfortable about that in that if this is an important enough position and this is a document that's been adopted by the city, why we would put ourselves in that position of saying if we don't get grants, maybe this is jeopardized.
And there are models that other cities have used as far as sustainability is concerned. Sustainability in a lot of ways actually means money saving in the operations of a city. Not always, but I would say a fair amount of the time. Shane was telling me about an example of another city that it was in Illinois that had the sustainability director fund their own position via grants for the first couple of years, and at that point enough had been done to justify and to create the community need for a continued sustainability person to be on. Now, what that looks like for Grand Marais is a good question. We don't really know what that looks like because we are a pretty small community, and if there was some full-time sustainability person, what would they do with
Well,
all of their time?
We don't know if it needs to be full-time.
Yeah.
We don't, and I don't think it makes any sense that a person's going to be able to fund a full-time position just by finding efficiencies in our organization. In an organization with 400 employees, maybe having one person do that makes more sense. In an organization with 20 full-time employees and 60 in the summertime, we're not likely to be able to self-fund a position without saying we're actually going to spend our own resources on it. But we do have funding right now, and part of the let's keep the pressure on the schedule here is if this plan is approved, then we can spend the rest of our year's funding on having some sustainability coordinator activities happening with Shane instead of having to continue to develop the plan. And that was always our idea with this 2-year funding from McKnight was we were gonna develop this plan, we were gonna approve this plan, and then we were gonna start to implement it. All of those things are going to occur. So we'll learn a little bit more about how much time does it take to do this activity, sustainability coordinator, and do we need to have an outside person involved, and how many hours, and what would it cost, and how do we pay for it?
Are you saying that Shane's contract is going to extend past the time this will be finished?
Yes.
Like how many months?
Well, we don't have a contract that has a timeline, but we're funded for this year at $10,000 this year. And the way we've put that budget together with Shane, we're not spending all of that by April, where, you know, there'll be some more that we can spend on
But it is,
implementation.
yeah, it is a dollar amount though. You know, those,
Yep.
the McKnight grant is a dollar amount per year. So we know what we can pay Shane out of that amount. So we have to be strategic about that as well.
Okay, but again, we will have some of Shane's time available to implement this, assuming that it gets adopted sometime this spring.
That's
We're
the
planning
plan.
to do that,
With
yes.
with the timeline, if we keep following the timeline that I've laid out, then I should have 100 hours to put towards implementing the plan if we can get it passed in like May.
What about, has there been any thought about sharing a sustainability position with the county, possibly through the E EDA?
Nope.
The conversation has been had on a couple of different levels, not formally really, about partnerships for this activity. And I know that there are some people at the county that think that would be a great idea.
That was suggested to me by Great Plains Institute as well. They thought that some of this could be shared with the county. They don't know what the conversations are like, but
Yeah.
that was a thought they had.
Well, I know Dave Mills is would be interested in that idea. Maybe that's something we could take up at the Climate Action Plan meeting?
Well, I think especially the whole area about compost collection, expanded recycling, and those kind of waste management activities that the county is already involved with in some respect. To me, it makes more sense to have the county take on those roles and responsibilities than the city take on those roles and responsibilities. Whether we get their
We won't
cooperation.
have a lot of ability to take on those roles and responsibilities without creating a lot of new regulations. So-
Right.
And then, you know, that's a small piece of it anyway. There's things in here that we can't implement ourselves for our entire electric utility because, you know, 40% of them don't live in the city limits. So but we have also had initial conversations with the county when we were talking about a climate action plan. I don't think they're ready to, well, they weren't anyway, maybe they are now, to talk about this.
I remember
A nice
that they
venue
were-
might be the joint meeting that's coming up at the end of this month to bring it up with the school and with the county.
I don't remember the county being against the idea of participating in some way with the Climate Action Plan. I think it just kind of died on the vine, kind of.
Well, I don't remember them being supportive of being financially participative of it.
Wow.
And that's what we're asking for here, to share a position. So,
Well, nobody asked them
no,
nicely,
nobody asked them.
anyway. Well, let's put that on the list, Shane.
Nicely asked the county if they would like to share the sustainability
Politely,
coordinator.
yes.
Yeah, but that sounds like something the council should do.
I think that Mike is right, that the joint powers meeting at the end of the month is a good time to bring up this.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the city is going to adopt this plan as a city plan if it gets adopted. It's not going to be a joint plan, I don't think. I think it's going to be our plan. The county, if they want to participate on their own level, they can adopt their own plan too, which I think would be different, you know, than what we might have here. So I mean, they're not in the electric utility business. I mean, it's
Right.
a difference for them. So.
Yeah, they're quite different. You
Yeah.
bet.
Well, my initial comment on that, just the funding for the position, is just that to state that the position salary is going to be primarily through grants, I just think is not the tone we want to necessarily set. To let,
I
let
kind of, I
people
took
think.
that from some reading of other climate action plans that had sustainability coordinators, and that was what Rochester was doing. They were going to, the city itself was going to put in a little bit of money, and then the coordinator was going to find grants. I've also talked to the sustainability coordinator of a city in Illinois, and he kind of helped me shift. So that's a bit of an old wording of the draft. He helped me shift the thinking into, grant funding for the first couple years to see how the position fits, how much time to allocate for the position, and then move to city funding if we find that this position is necessary.
I mean, that would be more my position on it, is that, yeah, she gets some initial grant funding to get up and operating and understand what the role and needs are of that position.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it should be somehow self-sustaining, which might mean that that's through city funds or other means, but to let the public think that this is going to be funded through grants, you know, and that, just not to let people think that that's a long-term solution to providing this position.
Well, the Utilities Commission can always talk about funding as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there are other options. I just think, the grant option is not, in my mind, isn't a sustainable, option, because you might get a grant for a year, might get a grant for 2 years, 3 years, but to continue to go back to those same grant sources, you're likely not going to keep getting funding. And, I don't think the job of the
Well, the way the draft reads right now is that we'll start with, there's an option to start with grant funding for a part-time position, to see how the position fits, and then move on from there, whether that's move to full-time and city fund it, or keep it at part-time. It's whatever is needed.
And I think maybe capture Mike's comment or Mike's idea about that position could partially be funded by PUC. That would make sense.
On page 8, just I'm wondering if there's something missing here when it talks about the role of the position, letter C,
Yes.
where it just kind of dies off at the end there.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there-
Well, that's just me not having good editing eyes.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
I just put ... after it.
Yeah.
Thought, well, they're to be continued.
It is to be continued.
All right.
Yeah.
Jay, I'm kind of curious about what you were saying about the PUC's role in kind of getting this plan finished, and kind of go through that again. What is it that you think we might could be doing?
Well, the PUC's role is to you guys, like the PUC, the people who represent on the PUC. Your job is to be the first draft of the policy people for the public utility, and to make decisions about how the public utility operates. And so those two things are directly reflected in the climate action plan, creating policies that address our carbon production and our usages and encouragements of renewable energy, using public utilities funds to also encourage those things and to make those possible, and also just to make the decisions about the implementation of how these things will actually be, come to actuality within our system itself. The contracts and all that sort of stuff. All that stuff goes through the PUC. If I'm understanding this correctly, and then the city council has oversight over that as well. But the reason that we have a PUC is to do that primary work and to get those things lined out. If I'm not right about that, then you should tell me.
You're not wrong in the sense that they get to do a lot of the implementation of these things because we have an electric utility. Plenty of cities don't have an electric utility and have a climate action plan. That's more of a city, like community-wide political position than an implementation position. So I think there's a role for the Utilities Commission to figure out how some of these things are going to get done. But the leadership of this is still going to come from the city council.
Right. But the question that I asked was whether or not the PUC had the political will to actually take on the things that are outlined and enumerated in the plan. Because if that's not where you're at, then we're not ready for this.
Well, I mean, I guess I'd back up a little bit from that, because, you know, when I started to read through like all the tactics, you know, those 4 or 5 pages of the last part of the plan, I think it's more than 6 or 7 pages. You know, and there's a lot of detail in there, and I mean, I don't know that the PUC, even if they had the interest and willingness to do that, has the capacity to do all these things that are, you know, or help promote or advocate or, you know, whatever. In fact, I was gonna throw this back to Mike, because there's a lot of stuff in here, and,
Yeah.
Can I make one quick comment before we discuss? I tried to put the maximum amount of things in there,
Yeah.
and thinking that as this goes through the process of public input in the city council and the PUC, that things would get taken out that snag the plan and prevent it from moving forward. So I don't see there being more added to the plan. I see things being, hopefully not too many, but things being taken out.
Well, this is a step away from an implementation plan that's established a schedule and responsible parties, right? This is more than just a brainstorming, because these ideas have been vetted, but it's like he said, this is throw it all against the wall and see what sticks at this point. And I think that we're talking about a long-term plan here. And, you know, if we were going to take a look at this list and say, how are we going to do this in the next 5 years, we'd need to add some resources. But if we take a look at
what you're
this,
saying is that's kind of an annual work plan sort of process would then take this plan, and that's when you would kind of decide who does what and what staff capability was.
yes, and I think that the idea of a sustainability coordinator, part of that is they own and manage this in terms of figuring out what can be done, who can work on what, making, you know, following up with those items and reporting on progress of it. So if you know, that's one of the reasons why that as a separate role makes sense to me, is that we could certainly do that in-house, but that would mean that take existing staff off of other priorities and they would work on this instead. So we're also going to learn a little bit about this next week when the city council gets together and talks about their strategic plan, and that really the purpose of that effort is to do some prioritization. And I'm curious to see where the climate action plan ends up in the city council's priorities. And then we'll learn a little bit more again about, well, how many resources are we going to be putting towards this? Is it a lot up front, or is it grant funded for the next 5 years? You know, we'll see where it falls in the grand scheme of things. So.
And another thing to keep in mind with this is that, you know, current year 2019, go time year 2040. 20 years, you know, is a short generation away. And there's been a lot of conversation on the national political scene about reinvestment in green technologies and decarbonization of the entire United States. So to me, that the fact that those conversations are happening means that we're going to be starting to see movements in that direction, even if they are modest movements in that direction, which will free up, hopefully, additional resources for small communities like ours to take these on and to be able to make big breakthroughs in how we deal with energy and deal with waste and carbon production and sequestration, for that matter. So this plan, like you acknowledged, is really ambitious. Like, it's incredibly ambitious, but it's only ambitious because we're the only ones that are trying to do it. And once we get a lot more people trying to do this, this is going to become standard. And then standard becomes surprisingly easy to deal with once the resources have been decided to, prioritize that. So that might be pie in the sky. I acknowledge that.
It's
But
very
I also-
hopeful.
It is very hopeful, but give me a break. I like being hopeful. But also,
I'm hopeful too.
I feel like we have a lot of work to do to prepare for this, and as I've said a number of times to many different news outlets when they talk to us about crazy weather happenings that happen up here, like we're on the forefront here. I mean, with next spring, they're talking about Lake Superior being at the highest level that it's, like at record high levels in April. And what's that going to do to us in the downtown? Like that's going to put us at a very fragile place when it comes to additional water coming down the hill. I mean, this kind of thing, this climate action plan, the stormwater management plan, all this stuff is connected to sustainability in our presence here on the shore. And I think that's a very, very strong argument for why this is top priority, because otherwise we're not going to be able to use that spot. We're not going to be able to use the downtown space if the water level keeps going up, and we still keep getting these 100-year floods every 10 years. So, I mean, not to be doomsday or anything about that, but it's coming.
Well, I
That's-
definitely.
I think we'll figure out a way to use it, though.
Right.
I get pictures.
Well-
They've been figuring out a way to use it for a long time.
Well, Jay, and again, in answer to your question of, is the PUC on board with this? And do we support it? And do we think it's on track? I guess I'm like yes, I'm happy with it, and I that's my position. Is that kind of what you're looking for at this point?
Yeah, it'd be awesome to have that in some sort of resolution form, just so we have a formal acknowledgement of it. I mean, just throwing that out there.
Well, I was going to just ask my one co-commissioner
Your one
here if he was
co-commissioner?
in
Well,
agreement.
I mean, obviously, we're advocates for doing the plan. We felt that was an important thing to do, and so I think you, in a way, you already have, our support. But now we have the document in front of us, and the question is this the document that we want to present to the public to engage in that community conversation? I would say this is, in my mind, this is the type of document that needs to go to the community to make sure, and to let them be part of this process. I mean, like you said, it's very ambitious, but I think unless you take on a big topic like this with a big response, you don't have any real, impact. So I think the direction that it's taken is the right direction. I mean, again, I'm not sure how we get there because, it seems like there's a lot of meat in this.
Yeah.
And, and I mean, I read through it, but I don't know that I fully comprehend all the implications of what this might mean.
Yeah, there's a lot of education that has to happen with it. Definitely, community-wide. I mean, this is a pretty significant, undertaking for any community to try and do. We're in an interesting place where, a significant portion, greater than half of our carbon creation can be dealt with as long as we're able to deal with our electricity. And that gets us to other issues to kind of get the remaining things laying out there. But it's if I'm understanding you correctly, we understand that this is a big challenge, but that the two members of the PUC that sit here right now are saying that you accept the direction of the plan and acknowledge that or agree that this plan should enter a iterative process with the community of some sort, or agree that this is the plan that you want this guy to bring to those other groups. So if you agree to that, then just make that make that be a statement that the PUC has made, and then we have marching orders. We go on it. that kind of thing. And I get what you guys are saying about, like, we've always been supportive of it, but this is also partially for documentation of knowing that each part of the process has gone through and done what it needs to do.
Well, I mean, there's two members of the city council right here, but would you, I mean, I can make a resolution in support of the climate action plan. Should I do that?
I think that'd be super if
Yeah.
you're willing to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so how do I do that?
Well, you don't have to use the word resolution.
Right, you just make a motion. I
You can
just
do
make a
that.
motion.
Yeah, that's much easier.
Okay, I still have a couple more questions
Yep.
before we get to that point. With regard to the proposal to develop large-scale wind turbine on the Sawtooth Mountain Bluff.
Yeah.
Everything, throw against the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah, I know, yeah, I've heard you say that,
That
but
might
I'm
not.
not sure that that's one that sticks for anybody, even if you're an advocate for alternative energy,
Yeah.
you know, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't,
The North Shore is not quite the right place for large-scale wind. It might be best to,
yeah, I mean, I'm not
Invest
sure
in
what the
developing
value
somewhere
of
else.
putting that in there would be. I mean,
I would say this, maybe let's not word it large-scale wind turbine, maybe let's say the possibility of wind power on the hill. There are wind power technologies that are not large and that don't kill birds, and maybe we keep that in there, and then the public gets to kind of talk about that a little bit. So that might be a reason to keep it in there, but maybe in a less objectionable form.
It's for you.
It's for me.
yeah, I think some of the things I've put
the
in
warranty
here,
department.
I know very well that they're done. That wouldn't be the first thing we would try working on.
Scale. We got to think about perspective and scale for the project, 2020 to 2040. You know, technologies are going to get better. Technologies are going to change. The possibility of us putting bird-friendly, smaller scale, or even larger scale wind generation on the hill is very real. It's just not where we're at right now. And I
well, I
totally
just think
agree
the
with you.
terminology here
So work
points
on
to
it.
points to what we know right now, and
Gotcha.
and that isn't going to set well with anybody.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we'll change the terminology.
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, I just want to put obstacles to
Mm-hmm.
the success of this plan when when we know that. I mean, it just doesn't seem reasonable that that's gonna
No, I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Good example of that, yes.
It's a great example of the kind of iteration we're looking for.
And maybe the focus of local energy, local renewable energy generation is on solar, and non-local renewable energy, we look at wind, because it's
That's kind of the way things are now.
Sure.
Just because utility scale wind is so cheap
mhm.
that we get through the wire from our utilities. That could change.
It's true. Demand and supply.
Yeah, it's really tricky stuff.
I'll change something in the wording to talk about exploring options for wind, and not necessarily
I think that's nice.
coming up with an
Have you
exact plan.
read this, Tom? Have you seen this?
Yeah, I did read a lot of it.
Did you read it all the way to the end? The last of the support the city's stormwater management plan. Consider the viability of installing generators in the drainage system to capture energy of moving water.
Yeah, actually, I had a
Somebody.
How's that set with
for
you?
stormwater.
That was no.
That's-
It's in the mains. They put them in the mains.
Yeah,
That maybe that needs to be reiterated. But
there was a place in Washington that did it, but they're
on a mountainside.
yeah, they're on a mountain and there was open trenches. I had a deal trying to just a long time ago, but nobody bid on it. Would be to like a water tower. You can put a split valve in it. When you pump the water up, you know, it takes energy. When the water comes back down, it runs a turbine,
Right.
generates enough electricity at least to run the lights on the water tower or something.
Yeah.
Just things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
a couple things like idling cars or
Did you get that,
vehicles.
Shane?
I like that idea.
Oh, it's in.
Okay.
It's already gonna be in the next draft.
Oh darn! No, I mean stuff like that. That's
I have
always.
another meeting I need to go to.
Thanks for
What
being
were you
here.
saying, Tom?
All
I
right.
mean, I always wanted someone to investigate using effluent for a heat exchanger. at the water plant or wastewater plant. I mean, I don't have time to investigate and make it work, but
We did talk to, when the NPCA was farming around, the opportunity to look at plants for energy efficiency stuff, and they've looked at that type of idea, and no one's ever said, yeah, this is ready to go technologically.
and actually
It's
Bluefin Bay,
cost-effective.
they designed their own, some of their people that aren't that high with their degree, and they heat their pool with their wastewater effluent. So there's ways you can, our water gets so cold, in the winter it might be not functional, but
Some of those energy efficiency things, like don't cut it now cost effectiveness wise, but could in the future, especially if there's a carbon tax of some sort.
my thing is, it doesn't have to be 100% what you use, let's say, to heat the building or this or that, as long as it's partial.
Yep.
Sure.
Even like there was one in there that I did read about idling vehicles. Well, you're out there working 20 below, you're going to idle your vehicle unless there's a different way to produce heat for the workers. I mean,
Yeah.
even though there's things there, they look bad, but unless there's an alternative way to handle the situation,
Sure.
And in a city of a bigger size, messing with idling just a little bit would have a bigger impact.
Oh, yeah.
We're a small city, so you'd have to do a lot of idling and then
But-
change that. to make
but
a
it's still,
difference.
you guys, I'm more on resource conservation savings than worrying about the climate change impact. My thing is, you guys, no matter what you think on that level, resource conservation is good on all levels.
Always makes sense, yeah.
So that's where I drive most of my thinking from. So.
And an underlying tone of a lot of the things that are suggested here is finding inefficiency
Yep.
within the city itself and beyond, and trying to.
Like
cut the
Mintab does that
inefficiencies.
with big businesses and municipalities. They send interns out to find ways to do it, and most of it does double duty: resources conservation. It saves us money, and so it works good.
So I just had a question too. A couple times you used the term stretch energy code. What is a stretch energy code?
If there were an energy code, the stretch energy code would be to stretch the current code to be more stringent and require higher efficiency.
Yeah, it's just a term that's
It's a
commonly
term, yeah.
used to
Right
describe
now,
that.
there's a bill, or there's proposal for a code to stretch. Well, there's a stretch energy code for the state for buildings of greater than 50,000 square feet, and it would be a voluntary stretch code.
Yeah, I mean, my whole question about the energy code isn't the energy code part of the building code, which the city has never adopted?
Yeah.
And so, and the way I understand it, the building code, you have to adopt the whole building code, not just part of the building code you can't just adopt the energy code component of it, you have to adopt the whole.
Well, we can set whatever local rules that we want, but whether or not, how far down that path you can go before you're obligated to the all or nothing,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, and it would take some work to figure
Yeah.
that out. We have a lot of building code type
Yep,
regulations,
I understand that.
but they're just not at this level.
Yep.
And if we're going to go this far, whether we're obligated to or not, it probably makes sense to just go ahead and do building code.
It might, but that's a whole different issue too.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of energy efficiency available through making buildings more efficient. Or that's one of the larger pieces of energy use in the city, of course.
It
So,
is.
especially new buildings, making them more energy efficient is probably a really good idea. So something that should be on the table, I guess.
Yeah, I think just to be going in it with our eyes open, that if we're talking about an energy code, we maybe also be talking about a building code.
Yeah. Yes, and I would say, Shane, maybe the word stretch probably isn't a good word just because no one's going to know what that means.
Yeah, and I
Maybe
think that
explain it
the
slightly
follow-up
differently.
points explained it already. If the word was
Okay.
just taken out,
Yes.
no one would ask what it means, and then you would read the follow-up points, and it's clarifying what we intend to do.
And under each of those underlined points, I'm going to add a little bit of a narrative that kind of would go into what is a stretch energy code, or just talk about why an energy code, why do that, and the benefits of it.
You know, and on page 12, under implementation of a lighting system, the last thing where it says charging a reoccurring penalty for those incompliant with the new lighting system code. I'd like to see that worded a little bit differently to not seem like it's so heavy-handed, but to say something like develop a systematic and effective enforcement policy. And it might take a lot of different forms, but to be that specific right up front,
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think is not to our benefit.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
Those are all the,
That's all you got, Mark?
I can't wait to see our new fully electric front end loader. It's going to be spectacular.
I think they're making them, or designing them.
that
Oh,
pump-
they've
that
used
pump-
fully
the pumper-
electric
the pumper
heavy
truck.
equipment for a long time in mining. Just, stationary.
Yeah, they don't move.
Yeah.
And then this last page here with these
Yeah.
funding mechanisms, I'm not sure I understood this very well, and maybe it's,
A slight background is that I didn't realize this version of the draft would become in the PUC packet, and so I left it in there. It's work in progress.
Work in progress.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I don't even understand it. I'm trying to figure out a way to.
oh, you don't understand it? Well,
Well,
yeah,
I'm
don't
trying to
feel so
figure
bad
out a
then.
way to
Really not
communicate
much to understand
a
here on the
strategy
last
for
page.
funding that helps people understand that it's going to be more than just money out of their pockets.
And
Get
in,
this
and,
stuff.
yep. And in your defense, I think we just asked you to create this page like 10 days ago. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it's a pretty new piece.
I didn't think you needed a defense.
Oh, okay.
It's doing great.
Thanks.
Can I make my motion now?
Oh, can you?
What are you asking him for? You're the chair.
I make a motion that the Public Utilities Commission acknowledges the creation of the Climate Action Plan and supports the Climate Action Plan and supports the current draft of the Climate Action Plan.
That's it?
That's it,
Okay. Well, okay, I'll second that motion.
but I'm open to rewording too.
Well, I mean, here's my thought on this, is that, this is obviously a stage in the process, and, to say that we support the current plan, I think is good to bring that to into a public process where the public now gets to be involved, and
Maybe
it
acknowledge
may,
that.
it may change, as the public has an opportunity to review this and bring forward their concerns and comments or questions about what it is that the plan states and what its objectives are.
You could say you support the current draft being brought to the public for review.
Thank you.
That's my it's the first step in the process. I mean, Alex Bates, not the first, but drafting the plan was the first step. But we now have a draft in front of us that we feel is ready to be presented to the public for consideration. And
Or close to that. I mean, I guess what I want the motion to say is that we know what's going on. We appreciate the effort. We think the process is on track, and maybe we could say something about that we look forward to, or like Mike said, that bringing this to the public is part of that process, and we support
Yeah.
that.
yes, we do. I do. So
Okay.
is that what you do?
Number two, Hayden, can you make sense of that for me?
We
Okay.
can make sense of that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Damn, that was hard.
Come on.
Shane, is there any other particular, again, getting back to kind of the idea that Jay was getting at is that the PUC has a role here, and what is that? And we're all trying to figure that out. Are there any particular parts of the plan where you're thinking, gee, I wish we could get some input from PUC? And you don't even have to have that now, but maybe just
Sure.
let us know if that comes up. Does that make sense, Mike?
Yeah.
I
Well,
imagine the electrical parts, but.
Yes. The main question I have right now is, the plan should, with respect to renewable energy, kind of outline how much we're going to try to generate locally and how much we're going to buy from SIMPA, basically.
I'm not sure we need to specify it.
Why not?
What benefit does providing it locally provide the PUC or the community?
Yeah. Well, I think what Shane is saying, I mean, it'd be nice to know, but I think what Mike is saying is, we can't know.
Well, if we don't perceive a benefit in terms of the climate action plan goals to having it produced locally, then why are we talking about it being produced locally in the climate action plan? And what about it being produced locally has anything to do with decarbonization?
I just see it as two different paths to decarbonization.
So why specify which one or which
Oh.
percentage of which we're going to do? They're both on the table. We don't have to prescribe either or even imply that we value either one more than the other.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of saying earlier, that I see them as two avenues. We don't know which one's going to pan out or be most beneficial or effective.
So don't specify
So
in
in
the
a way-
plan.
Okay.
And I've kind of asked that question to other folks in the industry, so to speak, before, and I don't think anybody knows.
Well, there's benefits to distributed generation,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily to an existing operating
course.
electric utility, though. And
And there's drawbacks too.
Yeah, but some of the benefits are it allows the experimentation at a smaller scale so that you can learn more about what's going to work and what's not, as opposed to giant projects that just have to work, period. So much invested in a transmission system that is an incredible amount of assets and space that you wouldn't have if you had distributed generation. But we're not going to make any of
100%.
those changes. Yeah. And we're not going to get to a tipping point with anything we do in the city either. So it's any of the theoretical benefits of that aren't going to be relevant to the climate action plan by 2040.
Well, in recognizing that we're a community of 1,500 people, that, I mean, we're not going to change the system that's out there. I mean, we're not going to be the driving force behind that. We can do certain things to benefit our community, but the bigger issues, the bigger system issues are going to be because 100 communities
Right.
are getting together to talk about this issue and doing it in every state around the country. It's not going to be, city of Grand Marais,
Sure.
solving this problem.
Does that kind of make sense, Shane?
Yes.
We kind of have to pursue both. I mean, we're going to keep trying, to the extent possible, we'll decarbonize through local distributed generation. If that turns out, maybe that's heavily subsidized by the federal government in the future because society, like Tim says, the rest of society decides that's the way to go. Maybe the rest of society decides to subsidize heavily or there's great breakthroughs in the utility scale decarbonized energy. And then so let's kind of plan on taking advantage of that as that becomes an opportunity.
Okay. My thought was that because we are such a small part of the greater, we are so small even compared to all the SIMPA, the other SIMPA members, thank you, that buying, say, REC's renewable energy credits wouldn't really push the decarbonization. It would just be a rearrangement of electrons, and that doesn't reduce our carbon footprint, that's just something that we can brag about in the media or something.
Yeah, and we've talked about that probably for the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
You know, we could join in on their efforts, but does that really address anything other than makes us feel good?
Whereas locally generated electricity, we know exactly what those electrons are coming from renewable energy, and it's energy that's gained.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, I think that's enough said on that, huh?
Okay.
Okay. Anything else that? have we-
One thing that was brought up was the, you know, with trying to move towards more electrification, can the grid, our transmission lines handle it?
Oh,
That was-
that
that
is
was
a good
brought
one.
up. That was brought up in the Climate Action Committee.
Yes, and that,
So, thought I'd bring it before you.
that was brought up in the electric vehicle workshop at SIMPA, was some people who know a lot more about local distribution grids than I were worried that because so much of the car charging happens in residential areas, the residential areas don't have that much capacity for juice. And that there was some concern that distribution and infrastructure in residential areas might have to be beefed up if EVs became really popular.
Maybe. We've got some places where if somebody was going to build a house that was going to be electrically heated, we'd have to beef up the last leg of the distribution system.
And that's not a terribly big deal.
No, it's
Something
part
to
of
do.
the, yeah, I think that most of our residential areas are either already served or very close to a robust enough system.
And it's not a train wreck that's coming that would, like, all of a sudden we'd get someplace and say, oh, God, we
No, no,
have
not
to
at all.
stop
I mean,
having electric cars. in
It's, I mean, do we see any real projections that suggest that there's going to be some sort of exponential increase in our usage? If anything, it's been going down. So I think there's these efficiency versus electrification are at least going to work against each other a little bit.
Yeah, the vehicles is kind of a game changer that, again, in that workshop, people were saying that there's going to be they're predicting a pre-market increase in electric vehicles in the next 10 years.
Yeah, and whether or not that reaches Cook County to the same extent that it does more urban areas, we'll have to see. We'll play a part in. But you know, 10 years ago when we reconstructed our system, we increased our voltage system wide, and that really was an effort to be able to provide more service to some of our areas. And I think that we're not really, you know, in any particular place, shouldn't be concerned about that as an issue. Now, if it means that our peak demand suddenly becomes 50% higher than it was, there's financial implications for that. If it also happens countywide, there's potentially transmission issues associated with that, you know, bigger than us
Mhm.
issues. And our backup power plant is still sized for more than we use. Eventually, that's going to change if there's significant growth to our system. But there's strategies to deal with any of that, and if we're selling that much more electricity, there's also resources to deal with it. So I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's a good
Thanks, Shane.
answer. Thank you, Mike.
Good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, keep at it. Don't peak too soon.
What's that?
Don't peak too soon.
Okay.
Gotta go for the long run.
Yep.
2040.
2040.
2040, I'll stretch this out.
Okay, are we done yet?
I'm done.
Okay, thank
See
you,
you, Tom.
Thanks.
Here, I'm going to put a plug in for your done.
Okay.
This is only half the things you asked to put on the agenda.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if you had a full complement of members before you started talking about some of these long-range existential issues at a policy level?
Yes.
I think so.
Well,
Wait for next
and
meeting.
really, all we have is just this little bit of information here without any additional information. beyond that.
There is no additional information. I think you're,
It's gonna be a conversation.
Yeah, discussion.
Yeah, I think that Mike's right, that we should have, if we're gonna have a new commissioner, we should have, rather than having the conversation twice.
that's
Or
probably
more, yeah.
optimistic.
I'm happy with that.
Okay.
I do have two things I wanted to discuss. One is Cook County Local Energy Project is looking into what's called a group buy program, where this is offered by Midwest Renewable Energy Association. And what they do is they try to go into a community, do a bunch of information workshops about distributed solar power, residential and commercial. If enough people are interested and sign up, then they have a single contractor come in and basically put in all those systems, and there's cost savings because everyone buys together, and so you get a pretty good price, and it's a pretty good deal for the contractor because they come in and there's enough business to make it worth their while. And so I think C-Club is going to head that program if it goes through, but I was wondering if Grand Marais PUC would like to be a participant.
What would our role be?
Well, I think that's up in the air. I think it would be, it could be some help with information, getting information out, community outreach about the program to our customers, and that might be about it.
Marketing it?
Yes.
Yeah.
What do we need to do that for?
Well, because it's in line with the climate action plan that we're working on.
Is there some specific information that you have about this program? I mean, I'm still a little,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, that didn't get sent out, did it?
well, I've not seen anything, so
No.
it did get sent
No.
out then.
I guess I just wanted to let you know because the process is going forward, and there, in the application, it asks, what's the jurisdiction? And so Grand Marais PUC would be involved. So I think there's been an application made to Midwest Renewable Energy Association to create this group buy program. It's obviously in our jurisdiction, so I guess at this point, I'm just telling you it's happening. And at the next meeting, I'll bring you, if we get accepted, it is another step in this, I will bring you information about the program with some specific asks or possibilities for how we might be involved or not.
I think that would be a better way to do it, rather than just saying we're putting a stamp PUC on it without having any information.
Oh, yeah, and again, that was my intent here, was just to let you know that it was happening. Okay, other thing that's happening is C-Club is putting on a climate change forum on March 9th. It's a Saturday at 5 o'clock at the public library. Focus of the forum is local climate change action. And we were hoping to have presenters from Arrowhead Electric, Grand Marais PUC, Cook County Local Energy Project, and Climate Action Plan. And the idea is that we would kind of let people know, what was kind of happening in the community in regard to climate change. And I guess that is something I would like to have the PUC endorse, attending that meeting and giving a short presentation on our photovoltaic project on the Public Works building and our involvement in the Climate Action Plan and our past resolutions on climate change and in support of carbon fee and dividend. And I would probably be willing to do that.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with PUC endorsing that, because those are steps we've already taken and been involved with.
That's the intent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what more official you would need than that.
Okay.
If you're just going to be describing factual events, then
Okay. Well,
that's a good thing. right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Then,
We're to J now.
we can adjourn. How do I do that?
You can just say you're adjourned if you want.
Chair is a prerogative. We're done.
Okay, I think we adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Excellent job, George.
There you go.
You now are gonna be so experienced.
I really am good at it, aren't I?
Yeah.